Monday morning after that crazy Super Bowl. I am Glynis, and you are listening to 2 G's in a Pod morning show on 1590 AM, or you can live stream us on WSMNradio.com/listen-live-2, the number 2. Please visit my 2 G's in a Pod blog, where we post a lot of our things for all of the podcasts, YouTubes. It's all there on my blog, 2gsinapod.com. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or go to my YouTube channel. 2 G's in a Pod is brought to you today by SweetShot Photography. Photography for marketing, website design, public relations, or social media. Headshot photography, too. Please visit their website at sweetshotphotography.com and look through their portfolio under the Gallery tab. I have 2 guests. Somebody just came running in. I saw this flash across my face.
Good morning, Glennis.
Hello, Steve. You're back.
I'm back. Well, see, today you were talking about HR, right?
Well,
so I figured walking in late, I just set up the perfect case study to talk about employees who come in late every day.
Michele, what do we do about this?
I'm going to document this right now.
This needs to be documented.
Timestamp it,
Hey,
yeah.
Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully.
It's good to be back.
Yeah,
Thank you.
What was that? It's been a while.
Well, it's been a couple of months. Yeah, I went on vacation in November, and then, of
That's
course,
right.
the holidays got in the way, so here we are.
Here we are, and I'm so glad to have you back. You were questionable last night, and I said, no. I want you back here.
I'm here. My fiance's flight did get off on time, so I was able to be here.
Good. Godspeed to your fiance. By the way, date?
Today, February 3rd.
No. Oh, see, okay. I get the hint. I get it. Michele.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I wanted to have you back because we had such a great conversation last week, and we kind of got off on a tangent and never got to really finish it. So I was happy. We had a kind of conflict today with one of my guests, and I said, okay, Michele, you got to come back and talk. We got to finish this HR stuff because it's important stuff.
It is, and there's a lot of stuff, and that's
stuff
why we kind of got off a little bit.
We got off on a tangent, but there's a lot of important points here, and I thought this is perfect for Steve, who motivates teams, cultures, and you do the
keep them in line.
Yeah. Okay, so he was a naughty boy.
Yeah.
Dock him? What would you do?
What? No, well, it depends. You hourly or salary?
Me, I would be, let's say, hourly today.
All right, so yeah, you would be docked.
Yep, there we go. Bad me.
Yeah.
And he's a chronic later.
Oh, well.
What do we do about that?
We need to have a conversation about your performance.
We do. I go stand in the corner for a while.
Yeah. Might have to write you up.
Really? In my permanent file?
In your permanent
Is there really a
file.
permanent file? Because I've been told that since 3rd grade.
There sure is.
Yeah, I know there is.
Most companies there
I
is.
know there. I have actually been a manager of people before in the radio industry. Yeah, I got some permanent files going back to about 1992, black marks on people's souls who just didn't care about the rules. And unfortunately, it brought down the whole team in a couple of cases.
Yeah. It's a tough position, but you have to do it because you have to do what's right for the business and make sure that people are doing what is expected of them.
Right.
But
and you know why I think is important, too. As part of the grand scheme of the company, hey, you know what? You're 5 minutes late every day. Here's how it affects the people around you and the whole company. So come on.
Right.
Just get up 5 minutes earlier.
Yep. You were a good manager.
I told my greatest line I ever yelled at somebody was, could you at least act like you give a crap?
It's true, though.
That one got me kudos from the boss because
Yeah.
he didn't have the ability to say it. And I just said it flat out. Act like you care, please. Or go work somewhere else.
Right. You have a choice to work here.
Yeah.
And there's that old saying, if you're 15 minutes early, you're something late, or there's a saying that goes with that.
Yeah, there is.
Right?
It's stumping
like
me
if
right
you're
now, but you're right.
Yeah. If you're on time, you're late.
If you're right.
Yeah.
Right? If you
Yeah.
get into the office at 9 o'clock on the dot, you're late.
Right.
You
'cause
should have
you're
been
not
there 5
ready.
minutes. Exactly.
You're not ready.
Exactly. Talking about files, they do have your personal file. Do you, as the employee, have the right to that file?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And usually that is a policy within the organization, but it's also required by some of the government agencies as well, the Department of Labor and so forth. Employees have rights to see their employee file. How that is accessed is determined by the employer. So they may say, once a year, contact HR. But really, there should be no surprises in that file if you're communicating back and forth with your employees. So what's the big deal? Let them see it.
I challenged a employer on that. They were letting me go. And it actually came as a surprise to me. I was like, why? And they gave me the reason why they felt. I said, fine. I will walk out once I have my personal file in my hand. They wouldn't give it to me.
Really? That's unfortunate.
Now, that was years ago.
Yeah.
That was years ago. I challenged them because I knew the law. And they didn't have, because they could let you. It used to be you weren't entitled to that file. You didn't know what they had on you.
Right. But it is about you, so you're entitled to see that.
That's right.
It is employer property, but it's about you.
That's correct.
So you should have the opportunity to challenge anything in there that you don't agree with, as well as utilize your performance evaluations for future job prospects. So you're entitled to that. Now, whether or not they charge you a fee if you want a copy, they can do that.
Really?
Absolutely.
10 cents a sheet at Staples.
Yeah. Excuse me.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's costing them to do that.
I suppose so.
You have to pay for medical records now, too, when they're yours. So
This is true, too. So let's stay on this with it, because Steve, you brought this up. This is really this is something for especially small businesses. We all know that unemployment insurance for a small business, it's expensive to constantly contribute to this. What do you do? It like Steve said, it does hurt the morale of the company, whether it be 2 people or 200 people, to see somebody chronically coming in late, acting like it doesn't matter, I do what I want to do. But the catch-hole here is they're a fabulous producer, top sales producer. What do you do?
Well, and I think a lot of businesses make that accommodation for people who are a top producer, and it will bring morale down because what's good for one should be good for the other. You have to be consistent in your practices. And someone who is a good producer, they can report to work on time just like everybody else. That shouldn't be an exception to the rule just because they produce.
You agree, Steve?
I've been the golden child before, and I've done my best just because I was friends with the boss, had worked with the boss, was brought in at a radio station, was allowed some freedoms and latitude to help build another radio station within. And some of the things that I used to have to do, like everybody else, I didn't anymore. But never showed up late, worked more hours than anybody else because I knew that resentment was going to be there.
Right.
Because I'd had that resentment of other people before. And I don't like spoiled brat, entitled golden children who think just because they have an in that they can do that. I think if you're given those privileges, you should work even harder.
Right.
To set the example. Now, is that shared by everybody? Obviously not. I speak for a lot of companies. I've spoken for HR associations several times over, and that's always going to be out there. There's always the entitlement mentality among a few, and I don't agree with it, but I do my best to just do my thing as best I can and just let the chips fall.
Right. And you're very fortunate that you don't let other people's opinions interfere with that. And sometimes people make those opinions not knowing all the facts. So as Steve just said, okay, so, he showed up for work on time, but he may have, had some different benefits, if you will,
Sure.
that others didn't have, but he was also putting in extra time that maybe people didn't realize. So sometimes employees are judgmental and make an opinion without knowing all the facts. Business owners do the same.
Yeah. But in a
We all
small
do.
business, if say I hire I'm in a sales, it's a business to consumer business that I have. I have one fabulous. I mean, this guy, gal, whatever, really holds the weight of my sales. He's what pays my salaries and others' salaries, and he's what, brings in, selling my product. But he's awful. I can't get the guy to sit down get into his office 15 minutes early. Can't get him to stay after 6 o'clock or whatever. Refuses to do it. I mean, he just refuses. If I let him go, it's going to kill me.
Right. And if you keep him,
Double-edged
it's going to kill
sword.
you. So do you go into maybe like a flexible work schedule with some of your positions that are okay to do that as long as they're producing? There's a lot of different ways to overcome that within the workplace. And depending upon the position, sales is, people are in and out. Who's really watching sales? If employees are busy keeping track of when the salesperson's working, maybe they're not busy enough and they need some more work.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So in HR, you're up against that a lot, I'm sure. And this is, what kind of policy would you implement for sales in that respect? Would you go with the flex, especially salespeople? Now, does the whole company have to be on a flexible schedule, or just the sales department?
You can do the sales department. I wouldn't necessarily, if you had 3 people in sales and you only implemented a flex schedule or no set work schedule for your salespeople, for one salesperson and everybody else had to follow it, then you're going to have a problem. But you want to be consistent within your department. And sales, I think, is very difficult to set. You need to be here 9 to 5 because they're probably entertaining prospective clients after hours, first thing in the morning, on weekends. So, they're very difficult to stick to a 9 to 5 schedule. And I probably wouldn't be as difficult with them as I would someone that I need in the office to answer the phones and be there for my customers. That's a critical, we're open from 9 to 5. You need to be here to answer the phones, to do the day-to-day support for the customers. That's a little different. They're needed to be there. And if they're not there, they're not answering the phones, customers are getting aggravated, and you have a different scenario. But sales should really be, it shouldn't fall under those same guidelines.
And Steve, I know you do a lot. A lot of your your speaking engagements include a lot of real estate people.
Yes, they do. Matter of fact, tomorrow morning, first thing. Big one.
Now that's sales.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That is sales. Okay? And that's a very tough sell. Mm-hmm. What's your inspiration to keep a sales force in real estate motivated? How do you get the manager of Keller Williams here in Nashua to keep...
Who happens to be one of my clients.
Oh, see that? And I didn't even know that. Keller Williams, you just got a plug. But what do you use as your inspiration to keep the sales force motivated?
What I try to tell people, and that's not only the leadership and the management, but also the people themselves who are out there. It is also not a 9 to 5 job like we we're just talking about with a lot of traditional sales. You're talking, these people are getting calls at 1, 2, 3 in the morning sometimes if somebody has a question and it's an emergency. I stress to people this: the company has goals. Whatever the salespeople have to do within ethical boundaries to get those sales numbers, let them do what they do best, however they do it, as long as they're not compromising their own personal integrity or the integrity and mission of the company. Let them do that. And if their numbers are showing at the monthly meeting, then it doesn't matter how they got there. If they're not making the company look bad, and they're not, I say pimping themselves out, but not doing something that compromises their ethics. They're not stealing listings from another rep, things like that. Know your personal goals, know the company goals, know how those work together, and as ethically as possible, go out there and knock on every door and crush every goal you can, because the company wins. When the company wins, the individuals win. And then you just work your way up the ladder. There was a situation somewhere on the Northeast, I'm not even going to name the real estate agency. One agent was caught artificially raising the price of a property so there would be no foot traffic, so that he and another agent could use it as their little love nest as they cheated on their spouses. And they got caught. What I love about it, they were instantly fired. Instantly fired. I give so much credit and applause to the HR management of that particular company, because they can't have that. These people do not represent them. As soon as they were caught, they were gone. And in such a litigious society, I give credit to companies who are still willing to fire people for the right reasons.
Right.
Just like that.
You agree?
Absolutely.
You're shaking your head like,
Absolutely. Often we keep people too long, even when they do crazy things like that will affect the company image. Just because they need a body. This person's selling great. It doesn't matter. They've damaged the company image in doing that. So, yeah, I'm pleased to hear that. I think that's fantastic. And you can fire somebody on the spot.
But we talked about this last week, though, okay, how we have to document. And in a case like this, I mean, you would have to have proof of that, wouldn't you?
They had installed cameras in the home. Yeah, they caught them.
Because they suspected this was going on.
Yes. They suspected something was happening.
Because isn't that an invasion of privacy?
It may have even been the homeowner who installed the cameras.
It could
and
be.
That's a different situation.
Yeah, and the other thing is, what is the company's policy about romantic relationships in the workplace? Do they have a policy in place to support that? But either here nor there, I mean, you've got a customer who is privy to this information, and that's damaging for the real estate company.
The customer's biggest complaint was they had artificially raised the price of the home.
Yeah.
So there was no foot traffic.
How did they know that, though?
There were never any offers. There were never any deals. There were no open houses. There were, and I don't know all of the details, which is why I'm not even going to say the name of the company, but all of these things were contributing factors in the account of it that I read. And it may have been the homeowner who put in some cameras, maybe suspecting something going on, or he may have already had a security system in place.
And you wonder, are they looking at any type of fraud charges for that too? Because that's, I mean, they're violating a contract between a customer and the broker. So that's pretty risky.
One thing I say to a lot of people is, at the end of the day, can you live with the way you just worked today? Mm-hmm. And can you expect your company to put up with it? I mean, I worked in the radio industry with some salespeople, some of whom have been in for 35, 40 years, and they're great. The clients love them. They perform. They work it. And other ones who sacrificed some very ethical boundaries just to close a deal. Mm. I mean, really did some sleazy stuff just to close a deal. And just a face-to-face conversation, somebody revealed that to me. And the consequences were not good long term. They were bad.
Yeah.
So what kind of policies would you advise a small business, a small broker, a real estate broker, just starting out? They decide that they want to go on their own, open their own little office. You have to, privacy, something like that. Let's touch on the privacy factor, okay, of an employee. Can you install, as a small business or even a larger business, can you install cameras?
You can. You need to let people know that
they need to
there.
know that.
Correct. Shouldn't be doing it secretively. However, I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that do that. Now, will it hold up in court?
Yeah, see, that's...
Probably not, if you haven't let people know that it's there. But I'm not a lawyer.
Right, but still. Because I know schools, that was a big issue. You know, now they are installing cameras and, you know,
got them on buses
surveillance.
and
But at one time, there was a fight. I'm not going to mention a high school that I know of that fought this tooth and nail. Why wouldn't you want that for your children?
Yeah, and I think there is some limit as to where you can have them. Like restrooms, I think, are very inappropriate. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of things happen at school.
And in the
So
workplace.
how do you overcome that? Yeah, small businesses, I don't know how much that happens in the restroom versus just not having clear guidelines of the culture you want in your organization. There's that culture word.
That
you
culture
love.
buzz.
Yeah.
The buzz.
Yep. Depends on the culture that you want within your organization. And again, it's setting those clear expectations of this is how I expect you to behave when you're here. This is what will happen if you don't. And you've got to stick to that. No policy is any good if you don't follow it and if you're not consistent with it. So I think, having policies about privacy in the workplace and people understanding that when you're in the workplace, you don't own anything that goes on there. Your email, if you're doing social media, none of those things you own, the business owns. They're providing you the tools that you're using to do your personal stuff, and they have access to that. And I do recommend that companies have policies. Most of my clients do have that in their handbooks that state it's company policy. We can look at it at any time, so don't be under the impression that it's personal, it's mine, because it's not.
As is some cell phones, things like that. If the company owns it.
If the company owns it, as well as if you bring your own and you use it for work. So that's a hot topic right now with the HR world is bring your own device to work. So, they try to save, their employers some money, and they're using their own personal cell phones for business use. You got to have some clear guidelines on how that's going to work out. What if the employment relationship doesn't work out? What happens with all of that information that's on there?
That is true.
And maybe you've got your business email coming onto your personal cell phone.
Which a lot we do, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Tons of people
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah. Well, we have so many ways now for everybody to get a hold of us. Some are the personal side, some are the business, and you also touched on social media. Now, every Facebook post is time-stamped, and there are some companies that have actually put software programs in place that track how much time their employees are spending on social media. And I saw some people were spending up to 25 of their 40 hours a week
Isn't that
on social
scary?
media, and it wasn't job-related. I mean, my job, of course, I'm self-employed, so what am I going to do, fire myself? Caught myself napping the other day, by the way.
That's tough.
I use that for my business, but not everybody can say that. And then all of a sudden, when they're finding these people are wasting company time,
Right.
that has got to be a very ugly road to travel down to try to enforce.
Right, and that's why it's important for businesses to have those policies in place that say, we are tracking you. We can track you randomly. You don't have to say, every Monday at 4 o'clock, we're looking to see who's doing what. But as long as they know it's being monitored and watched, that's their warning. And I have worked for businesses that, they have software, like you say, that can track the activity that's going on. And, it might be good to have like a small IT company come in and talk to you a little bit about how that might work. But they use that as their support for having the conversation. You know what? I hired you to work 40 hours a week for me, not 25 on social media for you. So, yeah, that's critical.
Interesting. Oh, well.
And it happens. It happens.
How about social media? Your cell phone. I know of an instance where private cell phones, like you were just saying, a lot of people use their private cell phones for business. They've given it to a manager of a department, has given their cell phone. It's on the employee directory. Your cell phone. You've allowed this to happen. All of a sudden, interesting text messages are coming in to the boss by a female, and the wife reads it. what do you do about something like? I mean, this is how I find everything: cell phones, email. It's too many secrets.
Right.
And as an employee, I want to know what you're doing on my time. It's my dime.
Mm-hmm. So how do you track it?
Exactly.
It's very difficult. And text messages nowadays, I don't really know that you can gain access to unless something has changed, what people are communicating back and forth. So I don't know if you can really gain access to that as much as the phone numbers that are going back and forth in texting.
Right.
But you can't get the actual conversation. So, in a situation like that, a wife reads someone's phone, and what's the recourse for her? There really isn't. Is she going to forward that to her? I mean, that's kind of a personal situation,
right,
that they're dealing with.
But it's on company time.
It is on company time. Yeah. And what is the employer going to do? Don't know.
That person might be safer hiding in the HR office than going home. Mm-hmm. You wonder some days, and you must see it. You can agree or disagree, where you just look at a situation and just want to ask somebody, how could you be so stupid?
Really?
Honestly, seriously.
But you have to be careful because everything
you can't. I can. I say it right to my audiences because I've spoken for over 30 unemployment networking groups in the last 2.5 years, and I tell them, look, when you're back employed, you got to be careful what you put on Facebook. You have to be careful what you text, and I just tell them right out, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Because you've been out of work all this time. You want to work hard, get into a good company. Just be smart.
Right.
Be intelligent.
Yeah.
Make intelligent choices.
Yeah, and I'm telling college students that too because that's their
a big
avenue.
Oh,
but it's interesting that you say that because one of the most difficult things that I had to do in my career as an HR professional, and I'm sure many other HR professionals can share this, is you have to get to the point that you don't expect people to behave the way that you would. And in doing that, I am very rarely surprised at some of the scenarios that come up. Because you can't expect that people are going to behave the way you do. We're all raised differently. We have different personalities, different, ethics, and it makes it easier to do your job. Otherwise, I'd be disappointed every day in people.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Instead, I can help them through that and guide them in a different direction, which is good.
You could probably write a book at this point.
Yeah.
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 For those who can't see us,
go.
for those who can't see us through the radio, the biggest smile of the
Right.
day just
right.
came
HR
across her
synergy.
face.
There's a lot of synergy in the HR there.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It is.
And coming through just think of the changes that have come through the years. I'm not even sure I could go back to a corporation anymore because I wouldn't know. So much has changed. And it's changed with all this internet access.
Mm-hmm. It's changed with that. It's also, coming to the next level of management styles versus, we're we're coming out of a recession right now. So during the recession, the companies managed people a little differently because if this one didn't work out, there was a bazillion other people waiting for a job that were very qualified. Now, that market's getting a little leaner. So, they may let their salesperson go, but there's not 25 more knocking on the door.
That's true.
And unfortunately or fortunately, business management with the employees, how they manage their employees goes with our times and the market and how easy it is to fill a position. I've worked for businesses where, we would just hire people because they were breathing and we needed bodies.
If they can steam a mirror
Absolutely.
or fog a mirror. Oh, it's true.
Yep.
It's true.
Yeah.
And there are industries that survive on people like that, and that's fine. But when you have a boss who's burning through employees all year long, and I've owned an entertainment company I'm in my 21st year, and I've been present at holiday celebrations of team members and their spouses where the CEO got up, walked to the center of the dance floor with my microphone and said, "Welcome everybody to this year's holiday celebration." Well, it really wasn't a great year, was it? The products we rolled out didn't take off like we'd hoped. Projections for this year aren't really good, but well, we have a DJ and he's going to play some music. So have fun, everybody. Gave me back my microphone, walked out without breaking stride, grabbed his coat, threw it over his shoulder, went out the door. Yeah. And I heard all night long from employees who, after a few drinks, got very brutally honest about the boss. And I can't imagine what the HR department in that company has to deal with. Because you're in the middle. You're the net, and other people are spiking the ball right at you from both sides. Yep. You know, leadership says they're not working hard enough. Board. Yeah.
And you have to be in HR. You have got to be the balance. You've got to be that metal in the weights. Mm-hmm. You have to.
We're the mediators.
Yeah.
But it also has a lot to do with why HR has such a tough time getting a seat in senior management tables, conferences, and so forth. Because we're going to tell them the facts, and they're not going to want to hear it. Sometimes they don't want to hear that truth because we're making money. We don't want to hear about the people. You're all for the people. And you know what? That's what you hired me for, is to find out what's going on with your workforce, see how we can improve it. Turnover is very expensive. So when you've got those companies that are just flipping people, that is very expensive versus putting the time and the effort into maintaining, communicating, and strengthening
training,
your workforce.
All of that.
Sure.
Yep. All of that is time and money. Time is money, the old saying.
That's
time
right.
is money.
That's right.
And HR is still, I think, it's the catalyst to the entire company. It really is. Mm-hmm. You are that foundation.
Right.
Without it, and I don't understand how a lot. We were talking about this last week. You know, it's very difficult for a small business to have an HR person. That's where you come in. HR Synergy LLC comes in. You can help these small businesses. They can hire you, Michele. But you know, I mean, it's a tough business.
It is tough, but it's critical.
It
because
is.
Even the small businesses have some large exposure because, you know, even as a small business owner myself, and I don't know if we hit on this last week, but, you know, I went into business as a human resource consultant because this is something that I'm passionate about and that I have wanted to help those small businesses that just can't do it. But being a business owner myself, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketing person. I just want to do HR. But guess what? I have to do all these other things. And
sure.
Steve, you can relate.
I know. King of a one-man mountain.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's me and a little small dog, but he's the eye candy, but he's not good at closing the deal.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Not unless you give him a couple treats.
Oh, Super Teddy's on a rawhide commission at this point.
I'm with you there. So, you know, business owners who have employees, they don't really know how to manage that so much. They know how to manage the work they need to get done, but how do you manage the person and the situations that come up with the person? And that's really what I love to do. And you don't need to have an on-site HR person to do that because you can call me. My clients will call all the time. Okay, this is the situation we've got going on. What do you recommend? And I'm going to work through different scenarios with them. And at the end of the day, they pick what they want to do. But I'm bouncing off, you know, one, things that are not going to get them in trouble with the law because I know the laws. Two, I've had real life experience for over 20 years, and I know the situations that come up and the best way to deal with. So I think that is very critical for small business owners. They don't need an HR person in-house all the time.
Let me ask you, Michele. Steve and I are basically freelancers. You do your freelance DJing, and I do. Basically, I'm a freelance photographer.
Well, I'm a freelance HR.
Freelance, right? Yeah, that's a very. You don't even look at it that way, but shouldn't everything we do, if I want to hire on another photographer, see, I'm like you. All I want to do is photograph. I want to shoot. That's all. That's what I do best. I don't want to sit at a desk trying to figure out, okay, what do I have to pay this one. I got to bring on somebody who's a photo editor. I got to do my accounting. Thank God my husband isn't a CPA. He does that all. But you got to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I bring on another freelance photographer, everything should be in writing, correct?
Absolutely.
You should have agreements on everything.
Absolutely. The days of making agreements on a handshake don't hold up. And
Don't
just
have a
having-
leg to stand on, as they say.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there's things you have to think about. If you're going to bring on, someone to assist you, are they an employee or are they an independent contractor? So, there's certain criteria that you have to meet to make that determination. And if you have full control over that person, maybe they're not freelance. Maybe they're an employee. So there's a lot to consider when you get to that point. And me, first thing I want to do is hire a salesperson.
Right.
Right? Maybe we could share one.
Maybe.
There you go.
If they can go out there and beat the streets and find companies that need a little bit of motivational firewood, then yes.
Absolutely.
And be very detail-oriented because, like Linda said, I just love the art of what I do. I want to speak and I want to write. Write more books, write the weekly blogs, be on stage speaking, sharing the messages. The other stuff can be a drag.
Right.
It really can. Play to your strengths.
Yeah.
That's where I'm happiest.
And for business owners who have employees, think about what you just said. Employees tend to excel at the things they enjoy
That's right.
and not so much the things they don't.
Right.
So as we talk about addressing some of those issues, maybe they're not a morning person. How do you make that work? We're all built the same way. Things that are fun and exciting are motivating.
Yeah. Well, I know Glynis loves her job. She was laying on the ground in my dad's backyard, taking my favorite photographs ever taken of me, sitting on the top of a woodshed, because I'm a provider of motivational firewood. And working with her is a joy. But of course, it took till last night for us to confirm. Am I really coming in tomorrow?
I know, right?
I had
It's
to dig back
see?
through a month's worth of emails to go.
Oh,
I
yeah,
am
it
supposed
was.
to be here. That's right.
You and I were just talking about that. I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't keep track of what I'm doing, and I have to keep track of,
Right.
what
We got your back.
I know you do. Thank God.
I would have been here anyway. If she hadn't answered back, I still would have been here because I just love being on the radio.
Exactly, and it's the same thing here. But I don't have the time. And I'm going to give a plug for radio, and Steve, you're going to back me up on this, I know, 100%. My radio show, which came thanks to George, my business, SweetShot Photography, has doubled. I want everybody to know radio works. I do. Now, I had to bring on an independent contractor. I want him to understand that is what he is. In my situation, it's very tricky. Time. I just want to go photograph stuff. I don't want to sit down and try to make out this agreement with him. And I'm like, oh my God, what about, if he, and this happens, copyright. Copyright is very big right now. Copyright infringement. Photos are always infringed upon. Okay? That's a whole nother part of business, doing business. HR synergy, that's a copyright.
Right.
You can't steal it. So here, he is a photographer. I hope he's listening because I'm trying to get him to have a show about this. My daughter's leaving me. So I had to bring on another photographer. I can't do it all. I can't be it because business has grown. But he has his own photography business. Okay? So I sent him on a job that I told him I'm paying him, okay, as an independent contractor. I sent him on a job. He took all the photos on his camera. I don't have an agreement yet with him. Duh. Whose, right?
Yeah.
Whose photos are they?
They're his.
I know someone you can talk to.
You need to get an agreement in place before they start working.
Duh. But see, I'm a photographer. I know how to run a business. I do.
but protect your business.
Hello.
So get that agreement written up by a small business attorney, and if you've got somebody, get that written up. It's a template. You use it for everybody going forward.
Does it have to be by an attorney?
Because you have copyright issues and so forth, I wouldn't feel comfortable writing one for you. I don't know who your contact is.
I do know an intellectual property attorney who has been very helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, because I have
would
the same
recommend
thing
it.
with my books. I had somebody tell me right to my face one day. Well, I asked, we're setting up a speaking event, and I said, okay, would you like to build in a copy of my book for all of your team members? Because it's an interactive journaling type of book. He said, no, we'll just buy one and photocopy it. No, you will not. Well, why
Wrong
not?
answer.
See?
Why not? We'll pay you for it. Yeah, the one.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking 65
Right.
people. And I thought, no. And in my head, every time something like that happens now, a little voice says, thank you for calling the intellectual property attorney. Mm-hmm. Thank you for researching that with an HR person, because I know a couple of HR people as well. Yeah. And just like an attorney can quote verse and case and judgments and in, this versus this in this state, you've got a backlog of so much great information that not only defines the bar, but sets the bar higher or lower. And that's a great resource to have, especially for people like Glynis and myself, who are passionate entrepreneurs, but can easily get tripped up.
Oh,
we
time.
can say or do something so wrong today that could kill our businesses. And it only takes once.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. And that is something I need an HR person to help me to kind of, now I got to put all these things into place now. It's no longer, I don't need exposure. That was the big thing, getting exposure. With the Super Bowl, I just learned this yesterday from the Super Bowl, that companies cannot use Super Bowl in anything that they're doing, any advertising or anything, because it's copyrighted by the NFL.
Right. You have to say the big game.
Really?
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I just learned this yesterday.
So all my FB friends, remove your posts.
Well, there were posts on
It wasn't
there.
really even a big game anyway. So,
Right.
unless you're a Seattle fan.
But there was a lot of posts on Facebook saying that.
That is true.
You better if you got the word Super Bowl anywhere on your advertisements,
right,
you better remove it.
Yeah. I was, as a former radio copywriter, I was told that day one.
Well, it's the same
The
thing.
big events like that, you can't say. Now, some people would do twists on it. It would be funny, but you still have to be very, very careful.
Right.
And
It's like this radio show. I say it's my show, but it's not. WSMN, Absolute Broadcasting, owns the rights to this broadcast. Right?
Right.
So that's an issue in HR. I don't know. Maybe is it an issue in HR, copyright infringement? Because if you're working with a company who makes a product that is their idea.
Not so much. It depends on the type of position that you're dealing with. And, if you've got someone in like your sales positions, your marketing positions, you are going to have an agreement in place when you hire them. So you're going to have a non-compete that's going to have your copyright rules in there. Or a non-disclosure even. So that's where that's going to hit. Does every employee need that? No. But the ones who are out there and using your trademark to sell your business, I would recommend you have that.
what do you think, Michele, would be the best thing for small businesses or just entrepreneurs like Glynis and myself, for people to ask themselves if they have in place or if they've thought of? Is there kind of one or two basic things people should think about right now? Like, they're listening to this interview saying, I wonder if I need Michele or not. Mm-hmm. What are a couple of the things that you see, maybe the mistakes that are made by people like us most often?
So I'm going to say, as we just touched on, neither one of you have employees at this point.
Correct.
But you hire independent contractors. Let's make sure that they're independent contractors. If you had employees, then we'd be talking about some different things, like the laws that apply to. There are laws that apply to businesses that have one employee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are those laws, and what do you need to do to be compliant? You know, big item is I-9 forms. Everybody knows about the I-9 forms. You know, and Department of Homeland Security is beefing up their inspectors again this year for small businesses because they don't get them. They say, you know, we'll do the new hire paperwork later. Right now, I need you to get on this job, you know, and later doesn't always happen. So that would be a really, you know, important thing. Communicating their expectations is huge. You know, you hire somebody to do a specific job, but how do you want them to represent your company? How do you want them to get that job done? You know, and what is their accountability if they don't? If you don't communicate these things with your employees, how do you expect them to know?
And that should be in writing also. Not only the communication, but in writing. Mm-hmm. Because as you're saying this to me, I'm going back to my independent contractor photographer. There is... I did see again, and I don't have the time for this. I had to research, what is hiring a photographer versus bringing on a freelance independent contractor? And there's a big difference. Mm-hmm. Because I want what this photographer is doing for me with my clients, that's my stuff. So he has to... technically it's his. He took it with his camera. So what do I do? Here, give him my camera every time? No.
No, but if you had that contract, it would be your stuff.
But it has to say it in that contract.
Yes.
He was all copyrights that anything he does for my clients is mine. Mm-hmm. It has to state that.
Right.
And my biggest fear is stealing. That's a fear, too. Bringing on somebody, and they work the business with me, and then suddenly, they're off with my client doing headshots. And
so you have to make sure that the relationships that you're having within your, you know, bringing into your business, you have a trust.
Mm-hmm. And today is kind of tough.
It is. Check references. Talk to other people that have used that person. Do your legwork. I know it's time consuming, and you probably don't have a lot of time to do that. But at the end of the day, Glennis, it's your business.
Would I hire you to do something like that?
No. Not so much. If you were hiring an employee and you wanted references checked, I would say really if you're hiring an independent contractor, you want to talk to those customers that they've worked for. You want to ask them those critical questions that are important to you about the integrity of the person and how they worked as a vendor or contractor for another business. And that's something that you should really do.
Now, with Steve's books, you have a trademark, yes?
I have copyright in the books. I have a trademark on motivational firewood, on my logo and on the name, which is now part of all my books. So I've got that. I've worked with some very good intellectual property people over the years. So, and that's something I wouldn't have thought of prior. I talked to somebody who is part of a company who has that as part of their HR, gave me some advice, and then I got a person on my own to take care of all that.
Right. And we all don't know what we don't know.
No.
That's true.
No. I started being a speaker because I love it. Didn't know all the ins and outs and cross the T's, dot the I's. I'm getting there because I've surrounded myself and hired some great people like yourself who've guided me through that end of it, made it a lot easier to deal with because I could blow this up in a heartbeat by not protecting something. Somebody could take one of my ideas and run with it if I didn't protect it.
Right.
And I am a big advocate. I don't care if you're self-employed, independently employed, have a couple people that you're bringing on to help you with your business, have a partnership. Everything should be in writing. Mm-hmm. Everything.
Absolutely.
and it should be agreed by each party who is involved.
Yeah, you must run into the things where people say, well, I didn't know that. And then you pull out that file with the top 10 list of do's and don'ts with that person's signature on it. And
But that's
what kind
your
of
proof.
resource could they possibly have
They don't.
against that?
They don't.
But yet
So-
they still claim, oh, I didn't know that.
Right. And that just kicks them right in the teeth when they go
Yeah.
to push, whether it be with the Department of Labor or what have you. That's the push. Because with the Department of Labor, the burden of proof most of the time
Is
is
on
on
the
the employer.
Right.
An employee
Really?
can go and say, I was supposed to be making $12 an hour, but they only paid me $10 an hour. They go back to the employer. They want to see documentation. They want to see proof of what was communicated. So most often, it's on the employer. That's why it's so critical to have documentation of everything during the employment process.
You want to believe the best in people, but yes, you've got to do that because there's some great companies in ownership out there who may not know everything that they're supposed to be doing, but they got a great heart and a good mind, and they, be a good old boy and bring these good people in. But yeah, I can see where that is so critical.
Yeah, and I have some clients like that just want to give away the world because their people are just so loyal and so great. And but you know what? Sometimes those people that you think are fabulous are gonna stick you in the end, and that's unfortunate.
And it's
but
happened.
It happens.
It's
a lot.
happened. It's happened to me.
Yep.
And this is why, you don't want to get tainted. You don't want to be told that we're ending again, Michelle. Michelle, quickly. Michelle Gray of HR Synergy. Where can they contact you? Because you are so knowledgeable.
Thank you. My office is at 301 Daniel Webster Highway in Merrimack. My phone number is 603-275-6630. My website, www.hrsynergyllc.com.
Steve Gamlin, give us some motivation.
You got it. Go into today with a vision. Get out there, take some action, make it happen, make it legal.
Make it
right,
legal.
Michelle? Do your
Binding.
business legally and
And
binding.
where can they get in touch with you, Steve?
They can find me at inspiredbysteve.com.